Welcome back to the Women in Movement podcast. We are here with Kira Lamb, who is a Pilates teacher and practitioner, a former professional dancer, amongst many other movements, modalities. Kira, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am a classical Pilates teacher was a professional dancer in aerial industry. I did world tours, music videos, TV shows and commercials. And then I did 2 off-Broadway shows, which were the aerial shows, De La Gorda, Visha Visha, and Fuerza Bruta, Look Up.
Beautiful.
So I'm also a licensed massage therapist, but I'm not practicing right now. But I've been a massage therapist longer than I've been teaching Pilates.
Wow. So I'm sure massage therapy also just gave you such a nice understanding of the human body and all the muscles that you're going to be working with.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely helpful to go to massage therapy school before going to Pilates.
Mm-hmm. And touch the muscles that you're going to be working with on other people.
And also, in our school, we learned assessment and treatment of musculoskeletal conditions from both a Western lens and an Eastern lens. And so I was able to bring those assessment skills into Pilates, and I think that really helps me to work with, lots of different body types and help them maybe find greater alignment and greater ease in their body.
Oh, that's so cool, though, especially because, Western and Eastern practices are different, and medicine practices, movement patterns, bodies are different and variable. So it's really cool that you have such a vast understanding there. When looking at you and your life and your bios and your websites, which are all going to be included in the podcast bio, you just have a vast understanding of the human body. And I think it's just beautiful that you're constantly learning and constantly curious about the human body and helping others. And I
think I have a vast experience with movement and teaching, but I feel like there's so much more I could learn about the body and how it works and how it functions. It's kind of like the more you know, the more you realize you just don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, I do know how to move and I know how to teach movement.
Yeah. But I think you say that, but compared to most people, I think you have a really, really large understanding of the human body. There's always so much to learn. But
there's so much to learn.
Also, you briefly went over this, but you were in music videos. You were touring with amazing artists like Missy Elliott, which I'm sure everyone who's listening to this podcast has heard of Missy Elliott. Back in the day, nowadays.
And now she's considered an oldie, right?
No, Missy Elliott.
I'm old. I'm from the 90s. My professional dance career was in the 90s, and then aerial followed that. The last tour that I did was with Gloria Estefan. But then and previous to that, I toured with Missy Elliott, Faith Evans, Total, Puff Daddy and the whole Bad Boy family. So Lil Kim, 112, The Lox.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's also, what were some of your favorite music videos or?
Hands down, I'll Be by, oh my God, how am I going to forget right now? My favorite, the Il Nana. You know what I'm talking about?
I can't think of it right now.
I'm totally blanking. But I'll Be is the name of the song.
Okay.
I totally pictured her. That was my favorite video. Another fun video I was in, or popular ones that people would know, would be Crush on You by Lil Kim.
Okay.
And also Busta Rhymes, Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See.
What?
I always get titles and lyrics wrong, so but anyway, but I think that's what it's called. And then 112's Only You. That's still a hit.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Foxy Brown.
There we go.
Yes, I'll Be by Foxy Brown. Featuring Jay-Z. So it was when Jay-Z was brand new.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. And you're in Brooklyn, living the Brooklyn life.
Yeah, well now I am. Yes.
Do you remember any of the routines from any of those still?
I do from tours. I remember some choreography or hooks from tours with Faith. Definitely with Puffy because I did 2 tours with him. So and I did videos with him as well.
That's so cool. That's awesome. What an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was fun. I also, one of my other fun gigs, which was totally unique, when I lived in LA, the Spice Girls were doing a reunion tour.
What?
And I'm like too old, or I'm older than them, and so I was never like a fan of the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
But I was the body double for Mel B. So they hired 5 dancers to learn all the choreography with all the different choreographers, and then we had to help teach the Spice Girls the choreography. Or we first showed them what their show would look like, so we performed for them, and then we helped teach them the choreography and stood in whenever necessary, even on their big stage, which was super cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like in basketball, you have the practice players for the Liberty or the practice players for the Knicks, and you were just like the practice players for the Spice Girls.
And then one day, Mel couldn't show up because she was doing Dancing with the Stars, so I had to do the whole show with the other Spice Girls.
What?
All of them and me.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, in the rehearsal process, not in front of an audience.
What was your favorite Spice Girls song when you had to?
Oh my God, I have no idea.
Yeah, that was definitely my era of growing up.
But I had to learn all the lyrics. I never knew the lyrics because I wasn't like a fan of the Spice Girls.
Yeah, I was. We had Spice World, the movie, out, and we used to have a big van when I grew up. My parents had like a 15-passenger van because there were 5 of us. So we used to drive like this huge van around. We'd pretend we'd change it into the Spice World van.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's so cool though, to think about being a practice or even a real-time performer when people are sick.
Yeah, because when you're a background dancer, there's always this secret fantasy of like being the one with the mic. Like when I was a kid, of course I wanted to be Janet Jackson, you know, but I don't sing. But like just the idea of like being there, like being in the foreground instead of the background.
That's also so cool to think about, wanting to be the one with the mic, but having the energy in the background as if you were the one with the mic.
Oh yeah.
Like you were a background dancer, but you always had to have the energy as if you had the mic.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah,
like
we created the show.
Yeah, that's so cool. You got to fuel like Missy Elliott up. Like, you gotta pump her up.
Yeah, like, she's got mad energy. She's fine on her own. She technically does not need dancers because she's that lit, and she can dance her ass off too.
Wow.
But she's such also a visual artist that I mean, everything she puts out is just like, mind blowing.
It's so beautiful because I remember watching videos of Missy and like Sierra and just wanting to be, because I grew up in a white Irish Catholic neighborhood. I knew Irish dance, and then I'd be like, okay, but I know that there's more. So I'd watch Missy Elliott videos and be like, okay, there's a bop, there's crumping, there's like.
I love everything she does. I was in a Sock It To Me video.
So cool. So your experience as a professional dancer is just very vast. And then, but let's go back to your experience even as a child. You grew up with ballet.
Yeah,
which
totally different.
Yeah, talk to us about that. Yeah.
I was a classically trained dancer. I grew up in Amherst, Massachusetts, and there was a ballet studio called the Amherst Ballet Center and also the Amherst Ballet Theater School. And so we studied the Royal Academy of Dancing method. And so there was a syllabus that we would learn, and it was leveled. So you start off primary, and then you continue to build year after year. But every single year, we'd have adjudicators from England come and assess us. And we basically get graded on our dance and our skill, like our technical skills and our artistry. So I grew up with that classical training. And then we were also a performing company. I joined the company when I was like in my early teens. And we used to perform locally. And then we also performed internationally. We represented the United States at the, the Yugoslavian Arts Festival or something. But we went to Yugoslavia and Austria and Hungary to represent the United States. And we did classical ballet and contemporary ballet over there.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 15 when we went there. And then we also performed around the country in museums because my ballet teacher and the studio director or the theater director, she's also a visual artist. And she would create costumes that would look like Miro paintings. And so we would do like ballets or contemporary ballets dressed in these costumes, and then we would perform them at like the Guggenheim.
Wow.
Yeah, or the Hirshhorn Museum.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of cool performing experiences as a kid. And then when I was 13, that was the first time my mom brought me to New York City, and I trained at the Dance Theater Harlem for the summer. I did that 2 summers in a row. One of the things that was important for her, or to my mom, was to expose me to other Black people doing ballet, because I grew up in a predominantly white town, and there was like one other Black girl in ballet. That was me. So it didn't even seem like professional dance didn't seem like a possibility or anything like that. So it was just nice to go there. And then later on, in my 20s, I think it was in my 20s, after I graduated high school, I studied for 2 summers at Alvin Ailey.
Wow, nice.
And then I started discovering the world of quote-unquote commercial dance. So I was all like classical and modern. And then I started going to Broadway Dance Center and Steps for classes because I wanted to learn how to shake my butt. And so I started taking classes with this incredible teacher named Frank Hatchett, who incredibly was actually from close to my hometown. He's from Springfield, Massachusetts. So I started training with him. And then one summer I decided I wanted to see what like a big city audition was like. And so I went on an audition and I booked the job, and that's how I ended up moving to New York City.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little fluke.
That's so cool.
So that's when I started my professional career in 1993.
So the first audition you went on, you booked? That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea that would happen. I had no idea.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think are some of the similarities or differences between when you were making that crossover into commercial dance from like your ballet and classical
discipline?
Yeah. Okay.
Like I just trained. Like, and when I would come here for the summers, I would just take classes all day long. Just stop to eat, and that's it. But I think there's also so the discipline, understanding the importance of technique, understanding how to dance in a group, how to feed off of other people's energy. Yeah, you learn performance quality.
Yeah.
And even in both places, I felt like I also built community, because I think that was a really important factor for me too.
Yeah, and I think what is cool is that at a young age, you were going to museums and you saw the bigger picture behind the art that the director or teacher wanted you to portray. So you could see your individual work, your individual hard work, but then you knew that there was a visual, higher artistic purpose in your group community performance, which is really cool to be a part of so young.
That was super cool. Yeah. I feel really lucky to have had that training and experience.
What was there differences in, like, what were the differences moving from classical and contemporary to the commercial?
The music. I was not dancing to Chopin. And also the clothing. Like when I went on that audition, I remember I was wearing Doc Martens, knee pads, black spandex booty shorts, and a little black bra top.
Wow.
Yeah. And coming from like a classical world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very, very different.
Yeah. Were you in tights a lot in the classical world?
Oh, in classical?
Yeah.
It was all tights, point shoes, leotards.
No knee pads.
No knee pads. No knee pads in ballet. No. I didn't get those until the 90s. Nor had I danced before in like Doc Martens.
Yeah. And also there's the difference where you said you had to learn how to like shake your butt. Like in ballet it's this holding tightness in the body. Yeah.
Well, I think the difference between like the contrast for me, I was such a tween, I was such a bunhead that I was always so lifted and like light on my feet. Like hip hop is super duper grounded. So I remember when I first tried tap, which is also super grounded, I'd be tapping my ass off and make no sound effects because I wasn't grounded enough. So it's like I had to make that shift in my own body to like connect with the earth a little bit more. I mean I got it quickly and I started performing it, but it was a big contrast.
Yeah, that's cool to think about the relationship with the ground as being so different. Like
the ground and gravity.
Yeah,
right?
One where you're like enjoying the time on the ground and the time on the ground is actually giving you the rhythm or the beat. And the other one where you're trying to like kind of sometimes minimize your ground impact. So you're just jumping faster or
you're
less.
just like defying gravity. Like the energy is very lifted in Pilates and in like all the other commercial stuff. It was way more grounded with like bent knees. Like that kind of.
Yeah, I took my first crump class maybe like 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
And I was like, wow, I just wanted to do it for the experience. And it was through someone locally. His name's Brian Hollow Dreams. And I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And I took it and I was like, this is grounded, like intense feeling of the ground holding you and using that energy, which is definitely different.
The other thing I like about like hip hop is that it's so much more visceral. I feel like ballet felt like affected to a sense. I mean, not to criticize ballet, but for me, it felt kind of like affected. There's like an arrogance to it, like, but it's like I feel like hip hop is just like it's primal, it's authentic, it's real. Like you're connected so deeply within. Like, you hear the beats and it just like resonates in your body.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah, and you make the beats. You hear the beats, you make the beats.
Yeah.
In ballet, it's not like celebrated to make noise often.
It's elegant. It's just very different. Very different.
That's fun. I also like when I see two things in one. They had the Brooklyn Nutcracker where there was like
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so Brian was in that, and like there was also ballet, so it's the contrast of both, which I think is so cool to watch. Yeah. Cool. So moving on from the commercial dancing and touring, you started to kind of go in some other directions with movement in the human body. Do you want to discuss that a little bit?
Well, from there I went to aerial.
Okay.
So I auditioned for De La Guarda. And I booked that, and then I did that for 2 years. That was an off-Broadway show. And then I moved to LA, and then I came back, and I did Fuerza Bruta, which is also another aerial. It's immersive theater, and it's very physical. We wore aerial harnesses, so the show didn't take place like on a stage. We were amidst the audiences in a black box theater, so we'd be in the audience, we'd be like running on walls, we'd be diving over your heads, breaking through paper ceilings, like sliding on a mylar, like a plastic pool above your head. It was like really emotion driven, physically intense performances that was fully immersive for the audience members.
Yeah, that's so cool. This also just reminded me of a prompt once that our good friend Anna gave in a class, but she had said, imagine the floor is your audience. And,
that's interesting.
And like the shapes you would create, the faces you would make would definitely be different if you were on top of the audience at a different plane. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that, how you had to try to visually interpret how you are also perceived to the audience? Or
well, it's quite different because I grew up always performing on stages, so you have the audience just facing you the whole time. What's different and far more vulnerable is being in the audience and interacting with the audience. But let's take, for example, De La Guarda. That was the first aerial show experience I had. So the audience is in a black box theater. It's the Darryl Roth Theater downtown in Union Square. And so they come into like this black box space, but above them is a paper ceiling. And so we start off the show, we're in harnesses suspended above the paper, and we're basically swinging and flying back and forth, creating shadow images. And we start playing with like these plastic colorful toys. So what they're seeing is shadows of our bodies living and existing in our own world. Wow. So they can hear us like laughing and like squealing and, just playing. And then all of a sudden, balloons are added. So you have all these colorful balloons that are added to this collage over your head. And then all of a sudden, one of the performers breaks through the ceiling and is hanging right above the audience and interacts.
Wow.
And then at one point, we all break through the ceiling and we are flying back and forth over their heads and stuff like that. And then eventually the show takes place on the walls. Like we would run, like there was an act with 2 women and we would literally zigzag run up and down the wall.
Wow.
With strobe lights. There was rain involved, wind. I mean, it was so...
Oh my
All I
gosh.
can keep saying is immersive. It was
Yeah.
kind of like an experience that most people had never had going to a theater before. Nor had I experienced in the world of like hip hop or even when I danced for the Knicks. So it was just so different, you know, just very different. And so liberating for me as a performer because it wasn't like we were just performing to music and doing random movement. It wasn't like we were telling a clear story. There was like structure to the act that we were performing, but it was also us telling our own stories. They used to tell us, whatever your personality is, heighten that. And we could experience any emotion we wanted at any moment. Oh, we were also connecting with our other performers, so it wasn't like I'm doing solos and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it felt liberating for me to express like the highest levels of joy, or to experience like rage, or to experience like sensuality and fluidity, like all of that in one 90-minute show, or less than that. It was like a 60-minute show.
Yeah, and for people to be witnessing you doing that, and for like you to be okay with it, it's kind of cool because
it was therapy.
Yeah. Well,
ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, like oftentimes we do hide our emotions. Based on our surroundings. Like, let me not cry now. I'm on the subway, you know, or whatever it is. But that's really cool that you were able to like fully express different emotions in a room full of other people in a close proximity. Yeah,
and what was so special and unique about that experience is when you are, say, a background dancer. I also used to dance for like the New York Knicks. That will emphasize this point. Like when I danced for the New York Knicks, everyone had to look the same. And when you were like in De La Guardia and Fuerza Bruta, they celebrated individuality. They just wanted us to be more of our individual selves. So to be able to perform at such an authentic level, that's what's liberating. You know, when you dance for like a recording artist, the show is not about you. You're just doing choreography that goes along with the music. You put your own personality in it, but it's not emotion driven in the same way that this show was.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of cool things there, especially since a lot of your history was ballet. Again, you're trying to look a certain way, trying to dress a certain way, and then this time you get to be fully authentic in yourself, expressing through maybe some similar patterns, movement patterns, but it's your own expression.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. I wish I went. I wish I went there.
Those are my favorite gigs to date.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't even know they existed. I know that now people do these workouts where they like suspend from a wall and they're jumping around on the wall.
Yeah, it's very different.
I'm sure.
Because also we were attached to motors, so there was also the element of speed.
Wow.
And then we would have like in Fuerza Bruta, we were on like a treadmill built for 5, and so we do an act on a treadmill. There was this so much,
So cool. So cool. Okay, so moving from like those performances, where did you go in movement next?
Well, they kind of overlapped. So when I was back in the 90s, I injured my knee and I had surgery to my knee, and I went to Performing Arts Physical Therapy, and that was affiliated with the New York Pilates studio, which was across the hall. So once I healed to a certain extent, they sent me across the hall to start practicing Pilates for a more comprehensive approach to healing my whole body and not just my knee. And that's when I was like, oh, I dig this. And I became a student of Pilates, and I was like, I want to become certified to teach this, one day. And so I did the prerequisites for the program. I had to take like 75 private lessons to become accepted into this program. It was taught by one of Pilates' elders. Her name was Romana Krzyzanowska. She trained directly under Joseph Pilates. And so it was the first teacher training program that existed. Anyway, long story short, I did all the prerequisites, and then I booked De La Guardia. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just come back to Pilates eventually. Of course, I'm gonna go do this show. So then I did the show, And then I fell in love and got married. And I moved across country to LA. And I was like, okay, now, and I had my degree in massage therapy at that point. So I was like, now that I'm in LA, let me get certified in Pilates. My best friend moved back to LA also. She was in De La Guardia with me, and she was like, I'm going to get certified in Pilates too. So we went through a teacher training program together in LA, and that's when I started teaching.
Was that also classical Pilates?
That was not classical Pilates.
Okay.
I was going to come to that point.
Okay.
So when I moved to LA, I didn't know there was different kinds of Pilates. I just thought Pilates was Pilates. So I went through the program, and I loved it because I love learning, and I had a great teacher. It was a positive experience. And then I started going out into the world and teaching, and it just felt different from what I had learned in New York. And I was like, I miss my roots. I was like, there's something different. I couldn't even pinpoint exactly what was different, but I knew like exercises were different or were missing from what I had learned before. The equipment was different, and the way I saw other people teaching who had gone through other programs was different. And so then I started like Googling, like what was it that I was learning in LA? I mean in New York City, and I found out that I had been studying classical Pilates. So at that point, I started looking for classical programs near me, and at the time there was Power Pilates. And I recognized one of the teacher trainers, like Leakins, and he was from New York. I knew him from the studio in New York City. So I said, I'm going to go through this program. So then I went through that program, and then I've been teaching classically ever since, starting in LA, and then I brought it here.
And you also retook another training here as well, right?
Yes. So I did the Power Pilates. I came back, worked. And then eventually I did the New York Pilates Studio teacher training program, which was back to my roots.
Yeah, so it came back.
Came full circle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. For the listeners, what are some of the differences between classical Pilates and what's the other?
Well, there's so many different kinds. There's so many kinds of Pilates. I would say classical Pilates is closest to the original system that Joseph Pilates invented called contrology. So classical, or you can call it traditional Pilates, it is the Pilates that was passed down from what we call first generation teachers. So it could have been Romana Krzyzanowska, it could have been Kathy Grant or Jay Grimes. So Joe taught them, they taught their students, they taught me, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like the game of telephone. So we try to stick as closely as possible to the original work of Joseph Pilates as taught to those Pilates elders.
Cool. And I had the privilege of taking your class, which was wonderful, virtually. And you had given a quote by Joseph Pilates prior to the class and an intention for the month. So do you want to speak a little bit about the way that you incorporate classic Pilates in your own work?
Well, I mean, I teach, so classical Pilates is just a system or method of teaching. So we teach what's called progressively and systematically. So you have beginner, intermediate, and advanced level exercises. So you have like your most basic movement patterns. And once people become proficient in those basic movement patterns, you kind of like progressively add layers. So you have complex movement patterns. So it's a great way to learn. So that's like the progressive training. And then systematic is that we use all of Joseph Pilates' apparatus. So a lot of people right now are familiar with the reformer or the mat. We consider the reformer or the mat as like the meat and potatoes of your Pilates practice. It's kind of like when I would show up to ballet class, I would always start with ballet bar, and then we come into the center and do like adagio, or there's like a structure to it. So in classical Pilates, you do your reformer workout and your mat workout at whatever level you're at. And as a teacher, I am assessing your movement skills and trying to determine what else can I offer this person to help them build more strength, more flexibility, or to improve a certain movement pattern. And that's where all the other apparatus comes into play. So besides having the mat and the reformer, there's the Cadillac, there's the high chair, the Wanda chair, the baby chair, there's 3 size barrels. So we have the ladder barrel, the spine corrector, the small barrel. we have a pedal pole, a foot corrector, a toe corrector. There's vast apparatus, so we can address the needs of people's bodies with lots of different tools. So that's the systematic approach.
Yeah, it's so cool. What are your favorite ones to dive into recently?
Recently is the key word, because I go through phases. Right now, I am definitely on my reformer kick, but also the pedal pole, which is a standing apparatus. So you're standing on a small square platform, and it's a tall metal pole, maybe it's 6 feet, maybe taller. And then there's a crossbar, so it looks like a T, and then 2 hanging springs on either side. And the pole is representing the length of your spine. So you're standing with your back, say, alongside the pole and trying to lengthen your spine as much as you can. And then you're doing a whole bunch of exercises with your arms in the springs. And it sounds easy, but it's super challenging.
No, any exercise can be made really tough.
Yeah, exactly. Even the most basic exercises can be hard when you're really apply your mind to the movement instead of moving mindlessly.
Yeah, when you create your own tension, no matter what it is. If you're deciding to squat, you can make it the hardest squat you want. You can make it a shaky squat.
Exactly.
You can make it a wiggly squat. You could pick up an invisible rock from the ground, and it could be the hardest lift you ever had.
That's exactly it.
It just depends on where you're putting your tension. Your intention and your tension. Yeah. I think too, it would be cool to have the feedback of that device to lengthen the spine. The human brain works really well when it has a visual feedback. So having something to reference either visually or feeling it would be really nice when you're trying to do alignment things, especially.
Exactly. That's another important piece about like the systematic approach to Pilates. So we always start people with the most stability and support that they have. So what I'm describing, the pedal pole will be a more advanced exercises because you have the least amount of stability in your standing. But like on the reformer, you start off lying down on your back. So you have like a lot of support as you're moving through space. And then we have smaller apparatus, say a Wunda chair, which is a smaller surface area. And there's a lot more, you're moving your body against the weight of gravity in all different configurations. So you could be seated on top of the chair, you could be lying down on the chair, you could be, there's so many different configurations, and you're still working against the resistance of your springs, but you have less support.
Yeah, that's what I was also going to bring up, was that it seems like the apparatuses all have like a spring to it as opposed to a resistance band or like a weight.
Yeah, so it's spring-based apparatus, but not all of it is spring-based. So you have like the traditional mat, which is, there's no spring, there's no resistance, and the barrels, they don't have resistance. But the barrels are designed, what's called this one that you see right here in my apartment is a spine corrector. So it's designed to help increase the stability and the mobility of your spine, but it also helps to open up your joints. So depending on which exercise you're doing, it can really help people open up their shoulder girdle and open up their pelvis.
Nice. There is a really big boom in Pilates right now, and I think it's great for alignment, posture, because a lot of individuals are on phones or computers often, and hips, because a lot of people just don't have a relationship with their pelvis and their hips. So it's really cool to also hear about the specific toys, apparatuses
I think
that
it's
they
important
offer.
for people to know what exists, because since I started Pilates, like I started in the mid-90s, Pilates has become corporatized. So, and it's now, Pilates is like this buzzword, and we're like, oh, we can make money off of it. So now, because Pilates is legally a generic term, I could call anything Pilates. I could just make up this new fitness modality and call it Pilates, and you can. So there's also a lot of confusion in the market as to what it is. So I think it's great that there's so much that's accessible to people, but depending on what your specific goals are, that's how you need to choose the Pilates for you. So I teach classical Pilates, like as I described. It is so comprehensive. It's not about coming in and cranking out reps till your muscles tremble and you feel the burn. Joseph Pilates created Pilates, or his system, for optimal physical and mental function.
There you go.
For longevity. So it's not like an aesthetic driven practice. It's about how well you can move in your daily life, and for how long can you move that well.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about. And not all Pilates is like that.
Yeah.
So like you have to just determine like, do I want to go and take a mat class in a hot room, or do I want to go and do like traditional strength training on top of a reformer?
Yeah.
You know, with kettlebells and dumbbells. Like you have to choose what suits your goals. What's going to help you reach the goals that you want.
Yeah, because I think a lot of what fitness and movement does nowadays too, it's like, let's combine these two things and create this hybrid thing. And I love creating my own thing, whether it's like dribbling a basketball on a pole, or you know, I love that. But when you're talking about something again with like super intensive work or tension, really going back to the basics and like not allowing yourself to get bored, but allowing yourself to be curious about the simplicity of certain things and why one arm doesn't move the exact way that the other arm does, or why your shoulder is a little bit higher on one side. We all are asymmetrical in different ways. I mean, our heart's on one side of our body, but I mean, it's cool that there's this practice that really tries to balance you out for the long term, and to what you were saying, to exist strong for a long time.
And I like the word that you use, because I feel this is true of any type of skill building activity. Curiosity. Like you have to be curious and willing to be patient with the learning process. I think there's this misconception that classical Pilates is just like this tedious form of workout. It's very gymnastic. Like we're doing handstands and scorpions and like pull-ups. We're doing crazy gymnastic stuff because Joe was an athlete. He was a boxer, he was a gymnast, and he was a circus performer. So it's not like we're just lying on our backs and like moving our arms and just noticing imbalances. We are moving constantly. There's like a constant flow to the workout once you know the movement vocabulary. So I say it's a conscious workout that is also, it provides neuromuscular re-education in the process. It's very intelligent. So it's not like you're just moving for the sake of moving. You're building skills as you go. I always compare it to like learning a foreign language. So when I first started learning Spanish, I started with like A, B, C, Che. You learn the alphabet, and you learn simple phrases like me llamo Kira. It's the same thing with Pilates. You want the foundational exercises because they're the building blocks for your practice. And the better you are at those skills, the easier it is to be able to do the advanced exercises on the reformer or on the ladder bear or the pedal pole. But that foundation and allowing yourself to progress is the key. It's the same thing with aerial hoop, which I started like 2 years ago. I started off in the intro class doing basic skills, which kicked my butt. And I stayed in the intro class for so long, a teacher was like, I think you can leave that so much in the fundamentals. I knew that if I was proficient in the fundamentals, that going into a level 1 class wouldn't be futile. Like I would go there with like baseline strength to build upon. I'd understand like how to leverage my body against the hoop in order to achieve the newer shapes that I'd be learning. And it's the same thing with Pilates. You start off with the most basic skills, and then you build upon them, and you're learning intermediate exercises. And you build upon those, and you're doing advanced exercises. And so I'm not bored. I've been doing it since the 90s.
Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, it is understandable that you would spend so much time in an intro to aerial hoop class, because if you're spending so much time on these stable Pilates apparatuses.
Oh, they're not stable. They're not, trust me, they're not stable.
Okay. A little bit more stable than an aerial swinging hoop. It just makes sense that like you'd want to like be very proficient in the hoop, because the hoop is very variable. Like there are so many things that can happen when you enter the hoop, swinging wise or spinning wise, and just angles based on different body types or hoop sizes. What I also find interesting is that you started Pilates with this idea of, and this like knowing in your own body how it helped you and helped heal you. Can you speak a little bit about how you've enjoyed this Pilates journey for your own healing or the healings of others?
Oh yeah. So when I started as a student in the 90s, I would be consistent and then I would drop off because I felt good. Anytime I stopped doing Pilates, that's when I'd start to have the overuse injuries, like the tendinitises or things like that. Whenever I would do Pilates consistently, I would not get injured unless it was like someone flew into my head and I got a concussion, like that kind of like an acute injury. But other than that, I felt strong and capable at all times. And now that I'm in my 50s, I feel stronger now than I did when I was in my 20s and 30s and 40s doing those shows. I feel incredibly strong. I recently experienced injuries, but once again, it was an acute injury. I fell down the stairs and broke my foot.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. And I went to physical therapy, and then a combination of physical therapy, and Pilates helped heal my body. So the physical therapy really helped heal my foot, but then all the imbalances that came from wearing an air boot and crutches, all of that I was able to help manage with my regular Pilates practice. Even with a broken foot, if all I could do was the mat or like exercises that didn't require my feet on something, I would keep doing my Pilates practice so that I didn't recover from a broken foot with the rest of my body feeling jacked up.
Yeah. There's also a lot of studies with you can help heal the pain or any area by using the opposite limb or a cross limb situation. So the brain works in mysterious ways.
And everything is interconnected. So I can't ignore the rest of my body and think that my foot's going to heal. Yeah,
exactly. And think that something else is not going to hurt.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So it's the idea is to keep moving, even though it can be traumatic or like emotional on the body that you can't do certain things at that moment.
Yeah.
I like that I think a common thread is that you always stay curious about things, even the simple things. And that's just a beautiful trait to have.
I always stay curious and I never stop moving. Like I will move until the day I die. And I don't understand how people don't move.
Yeah.
I know that's easy to say because it's been a part of my life for my entire life. So it's like my default pattern. But I think that and I've seen in my own students, once you create the habit of moving, you too will also feel like, what in the world was I doing before I started this? Because it's not just like a physical thing. A lot of people think that fitness is about looking good, whatever society standards are. But to me, it's about feeling good and moving well in your body. And when people feel those changes, then you get hooked. And not to mention just like all the feel-good emotions or hormones that rush in as a result of moving. So I usually don't want to show up for my private Pilates lesson because I'm just not in the mood. I don't want to, and I don't want to go to hoop, but they are non-negotiable in my schedule. I show up, and I guarantee you, after the very first thing we do, I'm like, I love this shit, and I don't want to stop. Then I'd be happy if class lasted for like 2 or 3 hours. It's like you just have to start.
The starting, it's like a motive action. You gotta motivate yourself through action. Yeah, you create a habit loop. Yeah, there was something there that I also. Oh shoot, I lost it.
Well, you were also talking about my students. So
yes,
I have students that range from age 24 to 85, and I have to mention my 85-year-old student because she came to me. She had a really acute back injury. And she was wearing a back brace for a while. Eventually, her doctor told her that she could go to Pilates to strengthen her body. So when she started showing up, she would show up wearing a back brace and using a cane. This woman does not use either anymore. And she has such an active social life that I'm borderline jealous. Like, she is so active. I'm like, oh, what are you doing today? I'm going to meet my friends for lunch and then we're going to walk down here and go to the gallery. She is amazing. And her eyes light up when she can feel herself getting stronger. We started off with just body weight exercises with as much stability and support as possible, mostly lying on her back. Now she's doing leg springs, arm springs. She's on a chair similar to this one, the Wunda chair, but it's called the electric chair or the high chair because it allows her to simulate doing lunges basically or going upstairs, but it's a big giant step with the assistance of springs. And she gets so excited because it was challenging for her to go up and down stairs.
So the step has springs in it and it allows it to make the step up easier?
Yeah, so the pedal is connected to springs, and so it kind of gives you a little bit, remember like a Gravitron in the gym? It's kind of like that. It assists you on your way up. So if you want to make the exercise more challenging, you could reduce the spring level.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That could be so empowering for people.
So to watch her do that, it's so inspiring. And then other people who have had injuries or just didn't feel comfortable in their body, they had a lot of discomfort because of like just faulty movement patterns that didn't feel good in their body. So to watch people feel better is amazing. Or not only that, feel like they're learning something about their body.
Yeah.
That's really cool as well.
Yeah. Feeling like they have a new autonomy over their own body, their own movement. I think that too, the idea for people to like, I love how you said movement makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. It's not just something for aesthetics. It's not just to build muscle, because I think that it's not as much anymore, but there was for a while in TV shows or movies, there were always the dumb jocks or the dumb meatheads.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now people are starting to understand that movement is actually a very smart, intelligent thing. Like,
or it can be. It's not, but yes.
Yeah, but it can be, and it can add so much to your life and your learning and so much of what you bring to your community, because it also brings a positive mindset with it.
Yeah.
Right. This capable mindset that you can take on hard things.
Yeah, exactly.
And that you're worth more.
That's what I always say. I feel like learning Pilates or any skill is kind of a metaphor for life. Like, how do you approach it? Do you approach it with a sense of curiosity? Are you constantly berating yourself during the learning process? Or do you allow yourself to suck at something? And do you allow yourself to keep trying? Do you allow yourself to take in new information and try something like the same old exercise but in a different way? Can you breathe through the most challenging moments? Or are you always like grinding your teeth and holding your breath? Can you accept constructive criticism, or does it you have super duper high expectations? You think you should be advanced right now and you just taken like 2 weeks of Pilates? Like, you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah.
Through a movement practice that translates into your everyday life.
Yeah, and it's also a learning that usually sticks with you longer and better. So you can learn things from reading books or a podcast or just any other type of propositional information, so Google. But when you embody this experience that is transformative, or you learn something about yourself or notice something about yourself in a different way, it can stick with you longer. And sometimes it's just like 2 words or 1 word that's like powerfully charging you in a new direction. How do you think that movement has transformed your life and like different paths in your life?
Oof.
That's a big one, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'd say movement has always been one of my greatest forms of communication with myself, and also a way to express my emotions in an environment where that was not encouraged. So for me, it was like 1 part escape, but also 1 part just freedom. How else? I think movement has always connected me to my body, and it has always showed me what I am capable of. So I know, like when I started hoop, it was super hard, but I knew that if I just stuck to it, I would get better at it. And so I allowed myself, like I said, to be bad, and I just kept going back, and now I'm like doing much harder stuff than I could have imagined that I could even do. So it's like that self-efficacy that I think is really valuable, and I can apply it even into my own business. There's some elements of being a business owner that is really hard and really challenging, and I don't want to face it, but I know I can do it in baby steps. I know I am fully capable. So, and I learned all of this from movement. I also learned how to take care of my body. And I see this in my students too. Like, you don't always have to be reliant on going to someone else to fix you. So like, as a massage therapist, there are a lot of people who would just want to like lie on the table and fix me. That's not going to create lasting changes in your body. You actually have to create strength and flexibility. You have to create that in yourself. Through movement. And so a movement practice makes you more aware of your own body and how you can make minor adjustments in the way you're moving so that you feel better in your daily life. So it makes you more attuned to how you are moving and living every single day.
Yeah. And I like that you said communication, because I think the way that you are attuned to yourself, you can also attune to others in your environment in such a deeper level. I had listened to a podcast, one of your Instagram lives that is on your website, and I thought it was really cool when you said people need to start listening to feel. And so many times people listen to answer or listen to respond, but the listening to feel, and to feel with, our friend Anna talks about this, the full body, to understand and sit there and really listen to feel what is the other person going through or trying to say.
That's definitely a skill that I think I learned from performing, because you always, especially like in the aerial shows where there was an element of danger. So there's an element of danger, but also on an artistic level, you always had to be connected to not just their eyes, but their body language, so that you knew how to respond. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. There'd just be like a whole bunch of bodies moving in space. But you have to build a relationship without words. So you have to be completely aware, and like it's like multi-sensory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's also there's also like a kinesthetic empathy where you can actually feel what other people are feeling. Like if you see someone doing some crazy pull up and they flip and then they fall, you can be like, oh, you can touch the same part of your shoulder and feel it at a certain intensity. But I think, so much we have been disconnected from our bodies, and we have this challenge of relating to others because we rely on words so much. But I think that your ability to be so curious about your own body and the bodies of others has like allowed this huge understanding for communication and attunement to others to arise.
Massage therapy is similar to that too, because I was basically communicating with my hands, but I had to listen with my hands first. So I had to sense what was going on like beneath the surface of the skin before I would respond. And like oftentimes that's the difference between a good massage versus a bad massage, or one that's comfortable versus uncomfortable, or healing versus, I don't know, like disconcerting. It's, if you've ever had a massage where somebody just kind of, they kind of move on automatic pilot, and they're like just digging their elbow in, and they're not paying attention to how your body is responding. Like if you're responding by like tensing up and flinching, that's an indication of you're going too strong, too deep, or too fast and too soon. So it's like massage therapy also taught me to be super duper present and sensitive to what's going on in somebody else. Without words.
In a way that too, like you're reading contraction and pressure and like breath at such a close level.
But also the tissues. Like you can feel like irregularities in muscle tissue, like tautness. Like what is the texture beneath the skin? Like why are they feeling discomfort in this area? Can I sense that through my hands? So you're always constantly trying to like deeper in a sense. And it's the same thing when you're teaching Pilates. When you're truly teaching, you're not just talking at people, you're also observing their body language and their eyes. Because if I'm teaching someone and they're going through the motions, but you can see frustration in their eyes, or like their eyes start to well up because they're disappointed in themselves, that means I have to adjust something in my teaching. You can tell when someone feels defeated. You can tell when someone feels excited about achievement. Like even if they don't think you saw what they did, you can see that little confidence boost inside of them. You know, so it's always being very present on everything, and not just the movement. But the human that you are working with.
And getting to the root of what is coming out through the body, because it could be uncomfortability somewhere else, but it's arising in this arm. Also, I do kind of want to dive into the fact that because of the pandemic, you had taken mostly in-person clients.
During the pandemic, I was all virtual.
So you had taken before though, you were mostly in person, all in person.
Everything was in person.
So you had taken that to all virtual. Now you do a hybrid situation where some individuals come to you like once a month, but they see you online other days. How has your cueing and how has that shifted, your work shifted when you went online? Because it was very interesting taking your class because I realized I was like, I never take virtual classes. And I realized how much of a visual learner I am. But you were so good with cueing. I definitely would have to have a different setup personally for myself. But yeah, I'm just curious to know how your cueing has changed, how you understand different learners. You definitely eased me throughout the class. But yeah, there's all different learners out there, and when you're remote, it can be a challenge.
Well, first, just to clarify my business model.
Sorry.
So it's okay. So during COVID, I was forced to go virtual because the studios all closed down. So, and then I also stopped doing massage therapy. So I started offering my private lessons and my group classes virtually. Once the world started opening up, a lot of people wanted to stay online. They enjoyed staying online because then you didn't have to like commute to a studio and then commute back. It's a time-consuming thing. So I teach 4 group classes online. I have regular Pilates privates online, the people who see me like 1 to 3 times a week. And I also see people in person regularly 1 to 3 times a week. And they meet me at a studio and I train them on all the equipment. Some people, like you were mentioning, for budget reasons, they will take virtual mat classes because it's super affordable, but to have access to the equipment and the in-person training, they might take 1 private lesson with me per month because that's what their budget will allow them to do. Okay. So that's my current model. Now, as for Pilates, what's interesting about it is that in Pilates, we don't demonstrate. We teach using verbal cues, but also hands-on cues. So it's usually the combination of the two. Now, obviously, if someone does not understand what I'm talking about, I will definitely hop on a reformer and show them I too am a visual learner. So Pilates has helped me to actually train my mind to learn or to hone my auditory skills. I try to be as visual with my cues as possible, and I try to make them as simple as possible. I think because of my years of experience as both a body worker and a Pilates teacher, I have a good eye that I can see things on camera really easily, like maybe misalignments or like why maybe someone's not able to achieve an exercise, and I'm able to give them a specific cue. I think the virtual world has made me a better cuer because I can't offer you hands-on assistance. All I have is my words. And I think it's a great skill to have. Yeah. It's a really great skill.
Yeah, sometimes one time I had a client who was blind. He's like a 13-year-old boy. I taught him a lot of animal flow. I don't know if you know. Yeah. I was like, and he went away to a school camp and he came back. He was like, I did breakdancing for the talent show. But yeah, you need all the skills as a teacher if you want to help all the people. But it's definitely inspiring to see how you have also grown in your skill set. At this point, even in your fitness, you're still growing, you're still learning.
You can, I think being a teacher means always being a student. And being a teacher means I'm always consciously trying to get better as a teacher. Like, how can I become a more compassionate teacher? Or how can I find different words or different cues for the same old exercises that might elicit an aha moment in somebody? So being a teacher is never like a dead-end thing. No. You're constantly, and I'm constantly taking my own private lessons. Like I take 2 private lessons a week, and I take continuing education classes because there's so much to learn. Yeah. Classical, like I told you, all the equipment that we have, and then you're trying to adapt the exercises for different body types and needs. Yeah. There's so much to learn. Yeah.
I also love I love communicating what someone is already familiar with something new, so the new thing doesn't seem as scary. So, for example, I just started working with a bunch of girls in November once a week for basketball, and all they knew was ballet. But there is a spin move in basketball where you have to pivot backwards on one toe. And I was like, I bet you all can learn this move fast. And it's going to be dangerous once you do at a 9-year-old age. And they were like, so it's cool when you start to find those movement crossovers to help, I think, bring people into the state, which everyone knows now as flow, of proper challenge and proper like success. Because a lot of times I think people just get discouraged nowadays when things are too hard or don't come easy enough. And it shouldn't be easy, but you know.
Well, this is the thing, what you're saying is like classical Pilates. So like I was talking about, we have beginner, intermediate, advanced. And so you're learning like your most basic movement skills and then progressively adding on to them. So you're layering from existing knowledge that someone has. So it's not confusing. So in Pilates, wait, I just lost my train of thought. I think what makes classical Pilates unique to other forms of Pilates that are out there is that if you take some Pilates classes right now, Pilates teachers are creating what they call flows. So they look beautiful, they flow neatly, but it's not like you're learning skills progressively. You're learning cool flows, like learning choreography.
Right.
So I can go and learn different choreography week to week, but am I really doing progressive skill building? So if I teach you the rollover on day one of your Pilates practice, it's going to be super hard if you don't know how to do the roll up.
Right.
You know, if you don't know how to do rolling like a ball. But you have to learn how to roll like a ball before I have you do any other type of inversion.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to have you invert on day one. Same thing with aerial. You know, you're not going to go to a pole class and do like a chopper on day one. Like, you don't even have to climb the pole. You don't. You know, you have to build up these skills progressively, and so that your students always have a reference point, so they understand the new skill. And it's the same way with classical ballet. I couldn't jump or saute until I knew how to do a plie, because my jump is going to start with a plie and end in a plie. So if I don't know how to do that well, how am I going to jump well?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that there is, even in kettlebell world, right, there's these kettlebell flows where people are throwing the kettlebell, flipping it 1,000 times, catching it behind their back, underneath their legs. Like there is like this like visual beauty behind it, because people feel this pressure to impress people all the time on social media or in person, because we're exposed to so much because of social media that it's like, how do I keep like impressing others, but going back to the foundation and then like is so important. It's fun to express yourself.
100%.
Yeah, but it's also
I've done crazy ass things on a reformer too.
Yeah,
in the privacy of my own space. But yeah, it's fun to play. Everyone should play.
Yeah,
like no doubt. But that's why I say when you want to take Pilates, just know what your goal is.
Right.
You know, and if your goal is progressive and systematic training, you're going to probably want to go to a studio that does progressive and systematic training versus just like doing 100 pulses holding a weight. You know? Yeah.
I mentioned this briefly, and so we didn't even touch on this, but you have a wide background in pole as well. You taught Pilates in pole studios. You also taught classes in pole studios, and you taught a teacher training in a pole studio. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I started pole because my friend made me do it. So I was the one who encouraged her to open a pole studio. I was like, you're such a good teacher. You're an incredible like pole dancer. The only thing out there was like S Factor at the time. Like I was living in LA. She comes back to New York and literally opens up a pole studio.
Wow.
When I moved back to New York, she was like, I want you to teach for me. I was like, girl, I don't know how to pole. I've never been on a pole. She was like, I'll teach you. And then she created a method called Climb and Spin. And she wanted to create a teacher training program around that. So I partnered with her and I wrote the teacher training manual. And at the same time, I was actually learning how to pole dance. And then I became a teacher at the pole studio. And then I became a teacher trainer for the program that we developed. And that's how I got into pole.
Yeah, and you were also a personal trainer too. You had like a licensed personal trainer.
I was a personal trainer. Yeah, oh my God, that was like in the middle of my dance career. Yeah, so I was not in the food service industry. A lot of like artists and dancers are in food service. I went into fitness. So yeah, like my first job was front desk at Crunch Fitness. Back when Crunch had one location.
Wow.
And it was all group classes and a circuit training room.
Wow.
I remember when 13th Street expanded and turned into like a full-on gym with the group classes. I was there with like the OGs.
So funny.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you use the word circuit training because I started a circuit training class at Crunch when it was like 10 years ago, and now that's the class that I've been able to take anywhere. It's been a class that's I've been able to adapt to seniors or
this is quite different than
it's definitely different.
Because we're on the selectorized machines. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
like you would go and you do like 10 minutes on the upright bike, and then you move to the adductor machine and the abductor machine, and then you do a lat fold. It was like that kind.
Interesting.
Old school.
Yeah, like they have at Planet Fitness now, where you kind of have. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so that was in the 90s, and then I started teaching group fitness. So I mostly did like dance fitness at first, and then I did like sculpting classes and step classes. I was mostly known for like the dance, like when hip hop cardio was in, or whatever we called it at the time, I don't remember. I would teach people routines that I was doing as a Nick City dancer.
Wow.
I might water them down. Oh, classes were lit back in the day.
Wow.
I mean, they were so much fun. And then I got certified to become a personal trainer. And I worked as a personal trainer for a while too.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was all like during the time, mid-90s.
Wow. That's so cool. I think like like I said before, your history is so vast. Your current life is so informative and vast, and all of this will be definitely linked in our bio, and I hope that people can really save these links and get to them when they have time for them. Just if you have time for a couple more questions, what would be the thing that you're really interested in now to learn about, or any place that your curiosities are taking you? It could be movement, it could be animals, it could be just anything that you're interested in.
Well, I used to be fluent in Spanish. Because I studied in Mexico for 2 summers, and so I was fluent, and because it's been a long time since I was there, I'm still conversational, but I want to get my Spanish back. I would like to be able to teach Pilates in Spanish, hands down. So that's something I'm curious about getting into, and aerial hoop is still new for me, so I want to keep practicing that and get to what I feel like is performance level for me, and I would like to perform.
Yeah. Do you want the hoop to be like flying over an audience?
But I will say, this is going to be an interesting journey for me because I have always loved being part of an ensemble. I'm a performer, but I don't like all eyes on me. So what I envision is I will start off with like a student showcase at Body and Pole. That means it's just me and a hoop on stage with all eyeballs on me. That's going to be a hurdle I have to get over. I mean, I did solos off Broadway. Yeah. But those would be the most nerve-wracking experiences for me ever. That's what I'm interested in right now.
Well,
Spanish and aerial hoop.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know when the show happens.
I want to be like 10 people in the audience and no one I know.
No, I've never seen you perform, so this would be the
best.
My God. In person's the best. It doesn't, I mean, you can watch everything online, but when you're there for the in-person experience, that's what like all these Instagram things or these little cuts and edits of videos drive me nuts. Or people want to watch 1,000 soccer games on TV, and I'm like, I'd rather go watch kids in the park or like adult men play soccer in the park. Like, I want to be there for the live.
No, I agree with you. You know what's interesting is, as a performer that performed starting in the 90s and through like the 2000s, what struck me is by the time I got to Fuerza Bruta, that was in 2008, 2014, I remember sitting, we were suspended above the audience, there's like a mylar or like a plastic pool, and the music starts playing, and I'm looking down through the mylar, and I just see tons of white lights because everyone had their iPhones up.
Oh, God.
People didn't even watch shows with their own 2 eyes anymore. No. They were looking at them through their camera. And I was like, watching live performances has become a lost art form. Everyone wants to post. I mean, it was great for us in terms of marketing, but, you know, because everyone would post the shows, but it's like you lose so much of the experience when you're so busy trying to film it on your phone.
Yeah, because you have to look in a tiny space.
Yeah. And you're not fully present in the performance. You're trying to like get the best angle or capture the performer that you want to see.
Yeah.
You're not getting the expansiveness of the entire show.
Yeah. I also noticed that in the Olympics too. When they had the opening ceremony, the amount of people who were at the opening ceremony, and you just saw everyone on their phone. I'm like, you're there in person. Like, you can watch this on YouTube later.
Yes.
Nobody needs this on their phone.
But they want to post it to Instagram.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. If you're listening, maybe enjoy a live show.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's worth
but
all the
also
energy.
visit me on Instagram.
Yes. Visit her on Instagram. You have so many packages out too, right? You have a couple packages that you sell.
For like group
for
classes.
Pilates.
Yeah. So I teach, especially what I love about virtual is that I get to teach people from all around the world, and also in different time zones, which has been fun. So I offer classes a la carte, so people can pay for a drop-in class, which is $20, and with your registration comes a 7-day replay. So even if you can't make it live, or if you want to do the class again and again and again for the next 7 days, you have that option. And then I have a 10 class pass for $150. You get 10 classes, so it drops it down to $15 a class with the 7-day replay, and you have a 90-day expiration on that. So it's plenty of time to get your workouts in. And then I have an equipment series on Saturday. Every single month I feature a different piece of apparatus. This month we're focusing on what's called the tower, which is part of the Cadillac, so people who use their Cadillac or their tower. It's a 4-week series, $20 drop-in class, and then I have, for 4 classes, it's $72. And that also comes with the 7-day recording.
That's so cool. And you have bundles too that are already recorded, correct? You have...
Not yet.
Oh,
Coming soon. That's what I'm working on right now.
Exciting news.
Yes, I'm working on creating a digital platform so that people can rent single classes or workout programs.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah, it's good if I put that into the universe so I actually get it done.
There you go.
I started.
There you go. Thank you so much for having this conversation and taking the time out of your busy entrepreneur life. There's so many gems in here, and thank you so much for just sharing them with everybody.
Thank you for having me. I thought it was a cool overlap because while we teach different things, skill building is skill building.
Yeah.
Our ideas behind teaching and how you help people get stronger over time is the exact same. Whether you're teaching basketball or your circuit training or Pilates or anything.
I think that what's really cool, I think a common theme between the two of us is that we are both very curious people. Like, why are things not working, or what is the root to what's going on, or we're just always like, there's more to learn, there's more people to help, there's more out there in this movement. And I think in your case too, what it seems like is just this beautiful ability to take movement in so many different directions, and really like you just seem joyful through the whole process. Like, when you talk about movement, it's this pure joy, and your experiences you're very like grateful for.
I feel damn lucky that my entire life I've been able to follow my passion. Whether I'm performing or teaching, it's my greatest joy. And so it makes me like a little bit emotional because I feel I just feel lucky. I feel lucky to just always pursue my own passion and get paid for it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Thing.
And you're also helping other people find their joys.
Yeah.
So that's just a beautiful thing to be able to pass on through your art of communicating.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, even as a performer, like as an audience member, like performances are transformative. They're thought-provoking. They challenge you to self-reflect. And then that was my role as like a performer, was to try to evoke that out of people. But now as a teacher, it's something different. It's like a more personal connection that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, and you get feedback long term.
Yes.
as opposed
It's
to
a
just the
relationship.
one.
Yeah. It's a long-term relationship.
You get to watch the evolution unfold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you could just say one thing to the audience at this moment, one thing that either a piece of advice or something you find important at this time in your life that you want to share.
I'll share two things. First is a quote from Joseph Pilates. He said, "Physical fitness is the first requisite to happiness." And when he talked about fitness, it wasn't aesthetic driven. Like I said earlier, it's about how you move and you feel in your body. And it's about physical fitness and mental fitness. The other thing I would say is if you do not have a movement practice right now, just begin. Find something that inspires you or that you're curious about. It doesn't have to be Pilates just because I teach Pilates. But whatever type of movement practice, and then start off simple. If you're taking any type of movement skill, start as a beginner and allow yourself to remain a beginner for a while. And also start with consistency. Maybe you do it once a week, but you show up once a week. A lot of times when we set new goals for ourselves, we're like, I'm gonna do this 3 to 5 times a week. And then it's like, it's overkill. You burn out and you don't create a habit. But if you can start it 1 time a week and stay consistent with it, eventually you're gonna be like, okay, now I wanna do it 2 times a week. And then it becomes consistent. And then 3 times a week. You become your own motivator, you know? And so I say, just begin. Allow yourself to suck. Enjoy the repetition. Get curious about doing the same exercises over and over again until they feel like they are in your body. Second nature, and then build from there. And you will be amazed at what you can do over time. And like Joseph Pilates said, with patience and persistence.
I love that you also said enjoy the repetition too.
Yes.
Because there's so many little nuances there.
Yeah. That's how you learn. You don't learn anything without repeating it over and over and over again. And that's what I started learning as a classical ballet dancer. Every single class you do pliés, tendus, dégagés, rondéjons. Every single class for as long as you're a dancer. You know? So it's the same thing with Pilates. We do our reformer and our mat sequence. It's the same sequence. You just keep honing in, keep getting deeper and deeper into the work, and then you have all the other apparatus to play on top of it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, listeners. And if you have time today, maybe begin your movement journey today, even if it's just wiggling your fingers around.
Yes. Or find something on YouTube. You don't have to leave your house.
Yeah. Find something to be curious about.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.